Hey YouTube, Hi Radical here. There's been a bit of a kind of a break I've taken, I guess, from the digital world. Well, somewhat I've commented a few times, but it's been a while since I posted a video. This is my response to BigEvasive. I know it's a long time coming. We've been having a conversation regarding my Davos answer to the Davos question. And so, if you haven't seen the previous videos, I suggest seeing those. Otherwise, it might not make a lot of sense. But I went and tried to give this in an impromptu style, and it just wasn't working. There was too much, and I was too prone to allow the spread of my thoughts to get in the way of speaking. First off, I want to thank BigEvasive for his continued civility, and I feel you did a really good job of covering the essential in our dialogue, and I hope I can do the same with this video. Just as with my last response, there are lots of ways in which I can approach this, and I think the best way to start off is to bring up some of the key underlying points you made. And kind of the key one is the fact that you are a secularist, an atheist, or something along those lines, not believing that there's evidence of God. And I'm not sure how exactly you would describe your whole views, but that is certainly key in the context of what I presented thus far. And you also gave a summary of the ending assertions found in a paragraph of the pamphlet, God Loveth His Children, that I linked. And the summary went roughly 1, have faith; 2, know God loves you; and 3, any aberrations of our natures will be ameliorated in the next life. And you make clear your disapproval of this view as applied to same-gender attraction, and you go so far as to indicate that it's your estimation that my perceptions of such individuals being that way, and as you term it, needing to be fixed, as being, in your view, perverted. And I appreciate your openness and your continued willingness to engage in dialogue, in spite of your distaste for my view. At one point you say, I don't believe in God, so I can't believe in this stuff. And then you follow that up with the statement that you don't think that anyone has a right to define what marriage is or place people as being having a need to be fixed. And so I'm going to try to address this whole thing in the context that you're in with regard to the whole God issue and everything. So in doing this, I'm going to make reference to evolutionary theory and some elements of a few books, and I'll take a brief moment here to show the books. The first one is titled The Empty Cradle. The Empty Cradle, this book is by one Philip Longman. The man who wrote this is almost consistently opposite to myself in political and social views. About the only thing I share with him is his demographic assessment of the condition of the world. And so, anyway. The other one is the classic by Richard Dawkins, The Blind Watchmaker. And I hope I don't have to introduce him as an author to the primary audience that I'm guessing will be watching this video. I would make a plug for those interested and daring, well, obviously not those interested in daring within the anti-theistic community, but those within the theistic community. I'd make a plug for them to watch Dawkins' recent production titled The Four Horsemen. It's a bit long. I think you can get 2 hours of it streaming online, but it's a discussion in which he, Hitchens, Harrison, and Dennett discuss things anti-theistic or regarding theists, but things they don't agree with. They cover a wide array of stuff. But for those outside and largely oblivious to that, these are kind of the rock stars of the more militantly atheist or secularist crowd. They all have bestsellers. And I have, like, Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, which I'm partway through reading, and I also have A Letter to a Christian Nation by Harris. I've taken a glance at some others in the bookstore, and those were two ones that kind of caught my eye. And I've actually kind of enjoyed reading The God Delusion. Not that I obviously agree with Dawkins, but he's a smart man, as is Harris, and from what I can tell, they all are quite intelligent men. As I've mentioned, I'm going to try and address this with the fact in mind that you don't believe in God. You may or may not end up agreeing with the basis I provide, but I'm going to try to demonstrate that my view, as I perceive it, can have appeal beyond the realms of those openly or knowingly citing a dogma. So with that said, there needs to be another premise outlined and emphasized for the continuing defense of my view. I'm going to ascribe to a degree of what's essentially a consensus, this being natural selection, what Richard Dawkins refers to as the blind watchmaker. And so now in my perception, this has always been there as a support, but I haven't really accented it up to this point. You cite the material I linked from my official webpage that we've talked about before, the piece titled God Loveth His Children. While I'd originally placed this as an aside note, you were correct to place it as a key premise in my faith's take on the subject. And aside from the God-based premise you took issue with in connection to your view on things theistic, you also mentioned that, in your view, no one has a right to decide what someone will or will not call their relationship, what name they will give it. You also claim that homosexuality is proven to fill an evolutionary niche, that many or all indicators you see show some homosexual elements as being natural, and that these tendencies are widespread among, especially among creatures biologically akin to Homo sapiens, to humans. In Dawkins' The Blind Watchmaker, there's an illustrated portion in this chapter titled Accumulating Small Change, and hopefully I'll be able to work it in here to the display if I can figure out Windows Media Player, which I've been learning a little bit, in which he takes graphical manifestations of, this is where Dawkins takes graphical manifestations of a kind of simple simulated genome. This is a computer model underlying a series of vector-based dendroidal or tree-like structures. The computer program allows these things to manifest various effects of their gradual generational alterations in this kind of simplified genome. He takes and with this demonstrates that merely by utilizing a kind of gradual, or by utilizing a kind of selective breeding of these simulated creations, he can go from simple branch-like patterns to an array of many different kinds of representations that look far more like other objects than they do trees or branches. He shows a pedigree of beetle-like illustrations, and then he presents in another instance an array of other items that have striking similarities to other things. And again, I hopefully can get these photos that I've taken up there on the screen. But if you can get a look at those, or if you have the book, take a look and you'll know what I'm talking about. So these things can demonstrate a broad spectrum of possible results. Everything from a precision balance to a lunar lander to the seeming image of a man in a hat, a bat, or a jumping spider. All of these variations can reach things that look strikingly similar to things. Even a Spitfire aircraft has a striking semblance to the real thing in these things that he was able to contrive out of these computer models. My reasoning in reference to this is to show that there's a great deal of variety that is present in nature and natural progressions. At times it seems countless, the variety possible. But something brought up by Dawkins and demonstrated in natural motions is the fact that out of all the many possible combinations, within a given environment, the viable options as a ratio of the actual possible combinations in which a genome could ever be arranged is quite small.